Torah, and the Lord said to Abraham, "For the sin of Sodom is exceedingly grave." Genesis 18:20. The Torah emphasizes the consequences of inner corruption within the household. Bible Old Testament, Lot was righteous, dwelling among the sinners, yet his wife's heart was turned, and she looked back. Genesis 19:26. This highlights the peril of moral betrayal even among righteous people. Quran. And we rained upon them a rain of stones. Then see how was the end of the criminals. And remember Lot's wife. She was of those who remained behind. Quran 66, 10, 7, 80-84. The Quran illustrates the spiritual test within one's closest relations, showing that nearness in blood does not guarantee righteousness. Before we dive into this story, take a moment to think. What does it mean when someone closest to you, someone under the same roof, sharing the same faith and daily life, turns against the values you hold dear? Stick with me, because by the end of this episode, you'll see how faith, trust, and inner conviction determine ultimate survival, and why appearances alone cannot protect anyone. The night was silent, but not peaceful. The air in the city of Sodom carried a tension that could be felt even behind closed doors. Among the shadows and the faint glow of oil lamps in a modest home, Lot stood, pondering the weight of a test that was invisible, yet more potent than any army or storm. The walls around him could not shield him from betrayal that originated from within, from the one he trusted the most, his own wife. It is often said that the greatest trials are not those fought in the open, but those hidden in the sanctuary of the heart. Lot's mission, divinely appointed, was not only to call a corrupt nation to righteousness but also to protect the sanctity of his own household. A righteous man can guard cities and challenge kings, but when deceit slips past the threshold of his own home, the test becomes profoundly personal. Lot's wife had grown up alongside him, sharing laughter, prayers, and the burdens of daily life. Yet, appearances are treacherous. Outward compliance masks the internal rebellion of the soul. While Lot warned his people and guided them with unwavering devotion, his wife's allegiance was divided, drawn not to her husband's righteousness, but to the very corruption he condemned. How does one recognize betrayal in the heart of those we call family? The scriptures across time warn of this very peril. Moral decay often begins quietly, in small compromises, unnoticed at first, and then like a hidden flame, it consumes what was once sacred. Lot's wife, though living under the same roof, was already distancing her spirit from the path of divine guidance. Each day, Lot observed subtle signs, a hesitation in her words when righteousness was mentioned, a shadow crossing her eyes when sin was described. Small, almost imperceptible acts, a glance, a tone, a silent shrug, they all revealed a widening gulf between her soul and the light of truth. And yet, he loved her. For love does not disappear because the heart of the other falters. It was precisely this love that made the trial more acute. The narrative of a prophet is never solely about confronting external evil. Lot's story reminds us that the most intimate arenas of testing are often inside our homes, with those we hold closest. And when the people outside the door are corrupt, they are dangerous, yes, but predictable. It is the betrayal that comes from within, from one's own household, that cuts deepest, for it challenges the very foundation of trust and spiritual fortitude. Imagine standing in a room with someone who shares your meals, your prayers, your hopes, yet whose heart harbors allegiance to the forces you fight against. This is the dilemma of Lot. In the quiet, he prayed, not just for the people of Sodom, but for the guidance of his wife's heart. Divine wisdom had already shown him that some hearts, though close by blood and home, may remain distant from truth. The house of Lot became a microcosm of Sodom itself, a place where righteousness struggled to survive amid the subtle seductions of moral compromise. Each night brought reflection, and each day brought renewed attempts at guidance. Lot spoke gently, with wisdom and patience, but the divine decree had also set boundaries. Guidance can be offered, but not forced. Faith cannot be imposed upon the will of another, even if that other shares your name, your home, and your life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city streets, Lot contemplated the inevitable. A test had arrived, not of physical strength, not of cunning or strategy, but of spiritual discernment and moral steadfastness. And within the walls of his home, this test was at its most intense. The air grew heavier that night. Outside, the city stirred with sin, with heedlessness of the divine commands. Inside, Lot's heart wrestled with a more personal challenge, the realization that his wife, a partner in life, was already stepping away from the path that he so ardently followed. It was a quiet tragedy, not one sung in the streets, not one that would be written in the chronicles of nations. Yet, it carried lessons deeper than any public defeat. Lot's experience teaches that salvation is not inherited, it is chosen. Proximity does not guarantee righteousness, and protection comes not from titles or family ties, but from faith itself. And as the stars began to shimmer in the night sky, Lot knew, the moment of decision, the moment when hearts are revealed and destinies are sealed, was approaching. In divine wisdom, tests are never random, and betrayal is never meaningless. Each challenge, however intimate and painful, is a lesson for those willing to reflect, to endure, and to hold steadfastly to the light. The night had deepened, and with it, the shadows inside Lot's home grew longer, stretching across the modest furnishings like fingers of unseen tension. Silence, once a calm companion, now felt oppressive. Lot's heart was heavy, not merely with the knowledge of the city's corruption, but with the intimate pain of betrayal from the person closest to him. While the city of Sodom teemed with arrogance, mockery, and disregard for divine commandments, a more insidious threat festered within the walls of Lot's household. It was subtle, almost imperceptible at first, the lingering gaze toward indulgence, the quiet dismissal of moral guidance, the soft laugh at what should have been solemn reflection. These were the small cracks in the foundation of his home, the quiet murmurs of a heart turning away. Lot's wife had been raised alongside him in the same tradition, exposed to the same teachings, witness to the same guidance. Yet, proximity to truth does not ensure alignment with it. This was a painful realization. Faith is chosen, not inherited. Righteousness is embraced, not commanded. The divine principle is clear across all scriptures. No matter how close in blood or love, every soul carries its own test, its own responsibility. Lot observed her with a heavy heart. Each morning, her eyes betrayed a distraction, a yearning for the very things he had been sent to condemn. She would occasionally whisper her doubts, her subtle justifications, and her quiet rationalizations of Sodom's indulgence. "The city is not so wicked as you claim," she murmured, "surely the Lord's mercy extends to all." But in her voice lay a shadow, a soft, seductive pull toward denial, toward complicity. Even the Torah warns of such dangers. Proximity does not equal protection. Abraham, the patriarch, understood that even righteous households must contend with internal deviation. And the Bible echoes the same lesson. Lot's own family contained hearts unaligned with divine command, reminding generations that safeguarding faith within one's own home is a profound challenge. The Quran, too, is emphatic. Lot's wife was of those who remained behind, illustrating the heartbreaking truth that spiritual proximity offers no guarantee of salvation. As Lot reflected on these verses, he understood the depth of the test. One cannot simply act against external corruption while ignoring the erosion within the most intimate spaces. One evening, the test became unmistakable. Lot's wife spoke to him, seemingly in concern, yet each word was a veiled act of defiance. She questioned his choices, doubted the necessity of his warnings, and even subtly mocked the divine guidance he had received. "Why do you isolate yourself with these prayers and admonitions?" she asked, her tone soft yet laced with disdain. "Does God not see mercy in what we do?" Lot's heart ached. Love, respect, and trust were being challenged. The betrayal was not physical, not overtly hostile. It was insidious, creeping into the sacred spaces of the home, undermining faith from within. Lot knew the scriptures, warning, complicity in sin can be silent, yet its consequences are decisive. Night after night, the psychological tension intensified. Lot prayed silently, asking for guidance, for the ability to remain steadfast, and for his wife's heart to turn. Each prayer echoed within the chamber, a desperate plea not just for her salvation, but for the preservation of moral clarity in the household. And yet, divine wisdom is patient, and sometimes testing is necessary to reveal the truth of hearts. The household became a stage of subtle confrontations. Lot would speak of the sins around them, of the city's moral decay, yet she would respond with a softness that concealed resistance. She would laugh quietly at tales of punishment, brush aside the weight of prophetic warning, and redirect conversations toward worldly concerns. Each gesture, though gentle, was a betrayal, a sign that her alignment with truth was faltering. This dynamic illuminated a painful reality: the gravest betrayal is often invisible. It is not always in acts of open defiance, but in the quiet choice to look away from truth, to normalize sin, and to distract others from righteousness. Lot's wife, in her intimate nearness, embodied this principle. One can stand beside the righteous yet remain in spiritual opposition. The tension inside the home began to manifest in more concrete ways. Lot observed her joining gatherings, subtly condoning behaviors he had warned against, and even encouraging thoughts contrary to divine guidance. These were small acts unnoticed by the public, yet profoundly significant in the private sphere. Each act chipped away at the sanctuary of righteousness he had tried to maintain. The prophet's patience was profound. He did not lash out in anger, nor did he seek revenge. Instead, Lot continued his role as guide, teacher, and moral anchor, hoping that the light of truth could penetrate even the hardest of hearts. Yet, the divine decree had already shown that some hearts are fated to remain behind. Lot's wife, despite sharing his life, was walking a path that would diverge tragically. As days passed, the home became a reflection of the city itself, a microcosm of Sodom. The righteous struggle to uphold divine principles amidst pervasive moral decay, and those closest may be the most dangerous opponents. Lot's story teaches us that trust and proximity are never sufficient for spiritual salvation. Faith must be actively embraced. At times, Lot confronted her directly, speaking of the consequences of ignoring divine guidance. He reminded her of the stories of prophets past, of nations that fell due to internal corruption, of families torn apart by disobedience. Each warning, though gentle, was a spark in the darkness, seeking to awaken conscience. But she remained unmoved, swayed by the allure of comfort and conformity, blind to the moral precipice before her. And so, the stage was set for the inevitable. Divine justice and personal heartbreak intertwined. The trial of the household mirrored the trial of the nation, both on the brink, both teetering between mercy and judgment. Lot's role was not to force faith, but to remain steadfast, a beacon of righteousness in a world where even the closest bonds could harbor betrayal. The dawn approached with a heavy, foreboding silence. Lot stood at the threshold of his home, gazing at the city that had long been steeped in sin and defiance. But his heart was not on the city alone. It trembled for the home he loved, for the soul closest to him that had already turned away from truth. His wife's betrayal had grown from subtle whispers into undeniable alignment with the corruption he had spent his life opposing. She spoke openly now, her words no longer veiled in doubt or hesitation. "Why do you cling to this path of isolation?" she asked, her tone casual, almost mocking. "See how the people prosper. Do you truly believe you stand for God while denying the pleasures around you?" Her allegiance to worldly indulgence had become clear. Her heart had chosen the ways of the people rather than the commands of the divine. Lot's eyes, filled with sorrow, reflected a painful truth: love cannot compel righteousness. Proximity cannot force faith. The Torah, the Bible, and the Quran converge on this point. Each emphasizes that guidance can be offered, yet the acceptance of truth remains a personal responsibility. Lot's wife had chosen, and her choice would reveal itself in the hours ahead. The angels had already come, unseen by the city, unseen by human eyes. They stood at the edges of perception, ready to enact divine justice. Lot's heart remained heavy, for he knew what had to come: the city's destruction and the fate of those who defied the commands of God. He warned his family one final time. "Leave with us," he implored. "Do not linger. Faith cannot be inherited, salvation must be chosen." But his wife, whose soul had drifted away, hesitated. Fear did not move her, nor did belief. Her mind was ensnared by attachment to the very life and sin she had embraced. "I cannot leave," she said, her voice steady. "I belong here, among the people I know." And then it happened. Divine decree unfolded with unerring precision. The skies darkened, clouds swirling with an ominous weight. The ground shook as the angels carried out the command of God. Lot, protected by divine mercy, escaped with his faithful household, while the city and all who had rejected the divine warning faced total annihilation. Yet, even in the midst of salvation, a profound lesson was revealed. Proximity, love, and blood ties cannot shield a soul from its choices. Lot's wife, once a partner in life, became an emblem of inner betrayal, a reminder that faith and alignment with divine guidance are not inherited by household, nor forced by human desire. The Quran reflects this clearly. She remained behind, a warning that the gravest tests can occur under the same roof, and that spiritual alignment is a personal responsibility. As the dust settled and the echoes of divine justice faded, Lot reflected upon the meaning of this trial. It was a test not of strength or cleverness, but of steadfastness, moral clarity, and discernment. The destruction of Sodom, and the heartbreak within his household, were intertwined, revealing truths that remain timeless. Faith must be chosen consciously, not assumed through family or proximity. Betrayal can come from the closest quarters, and the heart must be vigilant. Righteousness and guidance are a responsibility, often lonely, but profoundly necessary. Divine mercy is paired with divine justice, and choices carry inevitable consequences. The house that had once been a sanctuary became a quiet monument to the profound tests of life. Lot, carrying the weight of loss and survival, moved forward with those who had embraced the truth, teaching that even amidst heartbreak, faithful perseverance ensures ultimate salvation. The story of Lot and his wife teaches us a lesson for all time. Love alone cannot redeem, protection cannot be assumed, and the most important battles are often fought quietly within the walls of the home. Spiritual vigilance, moral courage, and personal conviction are what determine the destiny of the soul. In the aftermath, Lot's survival and guidance of the faithful became a living testament. Righteousness is tested most intensely in intimate spaces, and the consequences of betrayal are both personal and communal. His wife's choice, though tragic, is a stark reminder that the human heart must choose truth consciously, for salvation is not automatic, nor is closeness sufficient to guarantee divine protection. And so, the saga concludes, leaving us with enduring reflections. In every household, in every relationship, in every heart, the divine test persists. Will the heart remain aligned with truth, or will it succumb to the subtle seductions of ease and conformity? Lot's story is a timeless mirror, challenging us to examine our own homes, our own closest relationships, and our own faith with honesty and courage. As we reflect on this story, consider your own home and those you trust most. Are you cultivating righteousness and moral clarity, or have subtle betrayals begun to erode the foundations of trust and faith? Remember, salvation is not inherited, it is chosen every day. Share this episode, reflect deeply, and strengthen the light within your household, for the tests closest to home are often the most decisive.